with the Mann Act? The New York guy. What was the New York guy's name? His wife kind of looked like an old Jennifer Aniston. Governor Spitzer in New York had that affair literally with a prostitute. They went after him and they said, listen, if you do not resign, we're going to bring you up on charges of the Mann Act. He did end up resigning, and they didn't go after him because they had gotten him out. He was a whistleblower. Yes? No, he was a district attorney, and he went after and busted people for all sorts of violations. He rose up to the office of the governor, and then when they caught him doing wrong, they went after him just as hard, basically, is what it was. Any other questions? Yes?
Tax and spend power.
What was the example of the tax and spend power that we had talked about in class? What policy was used? Raising the drinking age to 21. Is there a national drinking age? No. What did the federal government do to get states to raise their drinking age on their own?
We'll give you plus 5% of the money we did.
5% of the federal highway funds is what it was. So the federal government, and remember what I said with federalism. I said that the federal government has certain powers. The federal government can't do everything that it wants. So the trick on this is that if federal government wants to pass a law, they have to have a power in the Constitution. They did not have a power to create a national drinking age. So what did they do? They offered an incentive to get states to choose their way, which was 5% free money. And the Supreme Court ultimately upheld that. Let me get into some articles because I know that some people have asked about this. And let me just go back to chapter 1 right quick and take a look in here. And you'll notice we had all of those articles on the first example. We had the MySpace Mom article, if you remember. We had the little boy that drew the picture. We had Ladies' Night in here. I remember Nicole first demonstrated her anger when she talked about Ladies' Night. Y'all going to discriminate against me? At least I get to have Ladies' Night. And then you notice up here, we had talked about in several of the classes, but maybe not all of them, that girl that had basically convinced her boyfriend through text messages to commit suicide and then ultimately was brought up on charges in Massachusetts. Do y'all have questions about the boy drawing the gun? Do y'all have questions about any of the articles? Pretty straightforward. Make sure that you can tell me the story on these. And if you go back, to be honest with you, we spent the most time on the one with the New Jersey drawing the gun. And if you remember, what was the policy that New Jersey had? They had a zero tolerance policy on guns. And what does zero tolerance mean?
No, everyone.
No exceptions.
No exceptions to what, V?
Guns.
No exceptions to guns. You can't bring a real gun. You can't bring a laser gun. You can't bring a pop gun. You can't bring a rubber band gun. You can't bite a Pop-Tart in the shape of a gun and point it at somebody. You can't do your fingers kind of a thing. Or in this case, you can't draw a picture and give it to somebody. This little boy drew a picture, and what did he do with it?
Gave it to this kid.
Gave it to, what was the picture?
It was a picture of him killing the kid.
Well, no, was it a picture of him?
It was like on this.
They were friends. They were friends. Yeah. So what ended up happening? What was in the picture?
He was skateboarding with like it's stick figure.
He was a skateboarding
No,
stick.
I thought it was like you put it on the.
No, he wasn't.
He wasn't?
He
Oh,
was
I thought he said it was a
He drew stick figures. Yeah.
That was
One of them was
skateboarding.
pointing at the
Oh,
other
okay,
stick
I
figure and had like lines going to the other one.
So it looked like he was shooting him,
Yeah.
and it also had something else.
Names.
Names. Me and the name of the person. And it looked like the name of the other person was getting shot by the kid that drew the picture, me in this instance. What was he punished with? Suspension for 1 day and some counseling. And if you remember, what was it that he said he really drew? A water gun. Kind of seems like that maybe zero tolerance can cause some problems. We talked about Ladies' Night being discrimination. Take a quick look at that one. That's a quickie. We talked about how in Minnesota they did actually strike it down. We did spend some time on MySpace Mom. What was the deal with Lori Drew?
Her best friend didn't talk to him. They got in a fight, and her mom made a fake account catfishing the best friend.
Catfishing, yeah, that's got to be on here. 48-year-old Lori Drew created a fake account because she wanted to figure out why her daughter and her daughter's former best friends were no longer friends. Who did Lori Drew pretend to be? Teenage boy. And did she ever find out why they weren't friends anymore? So what did she tell her in the last post that she left?
The world would be a better place without you.
Wow, Nola, dropping this. The world would be a better place without you. And in fact, what was it that Megan Meyer had done after she read that? She killed herself. She hung herself with a belt in the closet. What kind of charge was Lori Drew brought up on? Say what?
It was fraud.
It was actually an interstate fraud kind of a case, a false identity kind of a thing. And you notice up here, in this particular case, the boy's name was Josh Evans, in fact. But if you notice up here, she was ultimately convicted, but it was thrown out because this fraud case really wasn't dealing. It was dealing with, like, if you purchased something, if you had somebody else's credit cards, if you pretended to be somebody else effectively to rob them. She wasn't robbing anybody. And we had a long discussion about, well, if Megan Meyer was this, I don't know, unstable, then this could have happened at any point. A number of you said, come on, 48 years old, she should know better than doing stupid stuff like this. We really need to punish her. But this led to the passage of what kind of laws?
Cyberbullying.
Cyberbullying laws. Go ahead, Noel.
But you also said that the mom was aware that the girl was having like mental issue. And
Ooh, yeah, she was aware of this and she kind of preyed upon it. There's a lot of different layers to this, but maybe give it a good look. And when you look back on it, she was convicted. She was not given very long in jail, and then ultimately this was revoked because they didn't have a law ultimately to punish her, and this is really where the beginning of the cyber laws came from. Nicole, did I see your hand?
I was gonna say, did you say it was the mom's assistant or like coworker that?
There was. The mom had another teenage girl that worked with her. The daughter really didn't know about this, but it was the mom and the assistant. They were the ones that were doing this. I know you remember the Catholic school teacher case. There's a video online about the Catholic school teacher case and the article. Make sure that you know this one really good. Do y'all have any questions about this one? Go ahead. Is that a question?
No.
No, you're just covering your face. Okay, awkwardly. Tubman, do you remember Tubman?
Yeah.
What was Tubman?
They wanted it on $20 bill.
Yeah, they did. They wanted her on the $20 bill. Give this one a good read over. Probably not going to be an essay, but there might be some questions about this. Going back to chapter 2, and I know that I'm coming up on time. A lot of articles in chapter 2. Y'all remember webcams?
Yeah.
University of Southern Maryland put webcams in cars. Why?
Safe driving.
Safe driving for whom, Hajar? Teenagers, the worst drivers on the road. I think it was like 16 to 24 on this. When did the cameras, did they run all the time? When did they click on?
Excessive G-force.
5 seconds?
if there was something of like,
Something what happened?
like
If the car like jerk.
a strange
Is-
turn or something.
Strange turn.
Excessive
Yeah,
is
the
it,
dreaded strange turn.
Sun acceleration with deceleration.
Alteration in G-forces. Go ahead.
oh, it was, yeah.
Alteration
Yeah,
in
that one.
G-forces. Sudden
I don't know much,
acceleration,
but I know that one.
sudden stops, swerving, or the strange turn, this kind of a thing. Make sure that you're comfortable with this. And ultimately, did they work?
Yeah.
Yeah.
They did. Do you remember how much the emails, well, they sent emails, right?
Yes.
To the parents.
Make sure you're comfortable with how they sent the emails back. Make sure that you're comfortable with what they filmed and how long they filmed and things like this. And how low did the emails drop after a year? It was high 80s. Make sure you give me a specific number on this. Land grab. Oh, Connecticut. Those poor Connecticans. Hi, Julia. The Connecticans. What was it, in fact, that was the deal with the land grab?
It was the eminent domain case.
It was the eminent domain case. What does eminent domain say, Brenda?
Basically that the government is able to take property for public use, I believe.
For public use with
Fair compensation.
Just, yeah.
just compensation, reasonable, what a reasonable person would pay on this. And Connecticut was doing something different, right? Were they trying to take property from the poor folks for public use, or were they trying to create something else? What's that?
It was a mall.
It was a mall. Retail locations, restaurants, office space, luxury condominium. How did they argue, in fact, that this would be a public use?
So it's going to increase tax revenue.
Their argument was, we're going to have taxes from the jobs, taxes from the sales, taxes from the property, and we're going to be able to fund incredible public services, police,